Jim, I don't know how you feel about this, but if I would look back and I could, I know what I know now. If I went back to college, I would spend more time with the marketing, the branding side, knowing how important that is now. Even with the
Absolutely.
podcast that we're doing, the speaking, the keynote speaking, all of that.
Yes.
And when you look at people who have done well, like yourself and others, one of the key components of that is to be able to understand that process and maximize it.
Absolutely. Because what I'll tell you is that so many people that have the entrepreneur spirit
Yeah.
are not in for the long game. They think like, okay, I have a short-term plan, point A to point B, and this is how I'm going to get there, no matter
Yeah.
what the product, service, journey is. But when you have a marketing or a branding or a PR background,
Yeah.
you start to look at things through systems
So
or
you had a
through
blueprint.
funnels. Yes, a
Okay.
plan.
Paul, I
And
need a blueprint.
yeah, and when you have that, it serves you insanely well cross sectors,
Yeah.
cross industries, right? But especially in leadership, because it's never about the quick fix or the short term solution
Yeah.
in leadership. And so that background or that foundation with marketing and with advertising served me tenfold in my career.
We can see it now. One of the things that I'm impressed by you and people like you, and Jim, chime in if you want to on this one, but when you have people who can see the entire system
Yes.
and how it's going to play out, that's so impressive to me because I'm always focused on one part of the process. I don't understand the entire system, and therefore, I don't always know what's coming, and I don't know how to capitalize on that. Where does this knowledge come to understand an entire system? For example, how to run a school district, how to effectively market myself as a speaker. Where are you learning these systems?
Okay. So in education, in our training, right, we
Yeah.
learned about backwards mapping or backwards design from like a
Yes.
curriculum
Start with
perspective, right? You start with the end in mind, and then you're constantly asking yourself, in order to be able to achieve that. And
yes.
and that is like Jim Collins has it that has the big, hairy, audacious goal, right? The ultimate goal. In order to achieve that,
Yes.
there has to be several, if not thousands, of smaller checkpoints along the way. And I think that this is where people end up tapping out because they have this big goal,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's to be a keynote speaker or a job or to lose 100 pounds, whatever the goal is,
That's our
right?
next guest. The next guy coming in is talking about losing 300
Really?
pounds.
Well,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
And I bet you that he'll probably share about how he couldn't just be like, okay, 300 pounds, we're going to get there in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Because then you end up tapping out. It's the same reason why New Year's resolutions predominantly fail because people don't set up the intermittent small milestone checkpoints along the way. And also, with that mindset, the ability to be flexible because that
Yes.
original path, even with those checkpoints, there's so many detours, right? Along
Yeah.
the way that, well, that checkpoint far off. So
Yeah.
now what am I going to do? What am I going to pivot? This checkpoint, doing pretty good with it. Modify here a little bit.
Yeah.
And when you have that mindset that no matter what, I am in it for the long haul.
Yes.
That's what creates the big system, relentless spirit to get there.
Ooh, Jim, we got to put that on the wall.
That's
There's
another bumper sticker right there.
We talk about our guests. They give us gems, these bumper stickers. And Jim had this great idea. He's like, dude, we got to take these quotes, these nuggets.
Every single guest,
Put 'em on the
every
wall.
single
That's
guest
it.
comes
Oh, I
back
love
with stuff.
that.
It's awesome.
Hey, say it again, relentless.
So your ability to not tap out
Yeah.
and be able to work through all the detours, all the setbacks along the way
Yeah.
is when you have, no matter what, a relentless spirit
Relentless
to
spirit.
overcome each and every one of those challenges because it's not about luck. It's not about hope. It's about strategy.
Strategy. I like that.
And when and we won't get it right all the time.
Yeah.
And I think we are saying, you know, off camera, that there's also so many different pathways to the finish line. There's
Yeah.
not one recipe for any given person.
I think we're all looking for a recipe, though.
We are.
Like,
We are.
Don, just give me the recipe.
The pill. We want the quick fix.
We want the
Yeah.
pill.
Mhm.
And it really,
Guilty.
in life, it's just like that in life. It doesn't matter if it's weight loss or the job hunt or
Yeah.
whatever. And I think that some people are able to have built resilience enough,
Like grit.
grit, to withstand the test of time and all of those storms, whereas others say, screw it. This was way too much work. I didn't realize what I was getting myself into,
Yeah.
and they tap out. And unfortunately, and the reason that I got so passionate about leadership is because we have leaders who are tapping out when it gets hard. And that was actually what inspired me
To go.
to
Ooh.
even to go down that
Okay.
pathway.
I want to get to that.
Yeah.
One thing that you reminded me of when you were talking about knowing that end result and being able to pivot along the way.
Yes.
Tony Robbins, you heard of Tony
Yes.
Robbins, right? He has this one story, and I don't know if you guys have heard this, Paul and Jim. Our friend Paul, shout out to Paul from Reestablishing Stratford. He's with us in the back there.
Paul.
Hey, what's up, Paul? I make fun of Paul because he's part of like 15 different organizations. I just mentioned the ones that I'm with him on. But anyway, I don't know if you guys heard this story, but Tony talked about a pilot who's flying to Hawaii. And this is every pilot who ever flies to Hawaii. They know in advance that because of wind and weather and other factors, their flight is never direct. They get up there and the wind starts pushing them right or left, and all they're doing is adjusting along the way with the full confidence that ultimately they will arrive safely in Hawaii. But that anticipation, the mindset that, yeah, I know the wind's going to push me left and right, and I know that this is not going to be a straight line, beeline to Hawaii. Just knowing that in advance, you have this like preemptive resilience to go, yeah, okay, yeah, no, I know we're off this way and that way. We're just going to adjust. And too many people in life, like you were saying, John, you're like, oh my God, we're way off course. It's over. Throw in the towel.
And to piggyback off of that, that is the exact reason that my first book is titled Adjusting the Sails.
Adjusting. Let's talk about your books.
What do you want to know?
So at what point did you decide I'm going to take what I've learned and put it into a book?
So
you heard her say books.
Yeah,
plural,
books.
right?
Yeah, no, she got adjusting
the Sails,
and what's the second one?
Against the Wind. And Against the Wind, leadership at 36,000 feet is actually the airplane analogy that you're just talking about, which is spot on. And the first book, which was really the one that I started writing about 6 years ago, Adjusting the Sails, Weathering the Storms of Administrative Leadership, is a boat analogy and how the captain has to do exactly what you were just talking about in a plane, but in the boat, depending on tide, wind currents, all of that.
Yeah.
And so I use that analogy with leadership. And so the books, in a nutshell, are really an end to a means, because the ultimate goal always was to impact through speaking. Well, no one, or usually no one, just goes from leadership or career straight to internationally renowned speaker.
Yeah.
There has to be some credibility built along the way. There has to be some impact that is, shared along the way. And so for me, that's been what my books were all about, is that as a new leader, I was seeing that there was so many books that were so much theory based and, data filled, research filled, which is all so important.
Yes.
But I was hunting for real talk. I was like, where's the book that has like the reality show of what really happens in the principal's office?
Yeah.
Where's the book that has the real stuff of what really happens with that crazy conversation with the parent in the superintendent's office? And I couldn't find it. And so I just started writing.
If it doesn't exist, you create.
That's what I did. I just started writing about it.
You know what she's talking about. I want to start an additional podcast. We had a podcast.
Should have been our first guest.
Yes, for two hungry teachers. Him and I used to go around and we would eat, and then we were two educators. But I started doing the same thing when I first got into education. He's been doing it now in 20
years, but I don't have a plaque at Fresno State.
Yeah, I've been doing it 11, and
Like
I got a brick on the wall at Fresno State.
Of course you do.
Right.
The sore spot for me.
So, well, you got a cup. Well, I mean, that's nice. But anyways, I wanted to do, because I was on TED Talk, I was on all these different things, but nothing prepared me for that first day of school when those 32 kids walked in. They're all looking at you with, what are you going to show me that's better than anyone else? And I had no experience at all. So I wanted to talk what you're just saying is just educate new teachers coming in and just talk to them about the realism of what first day's like, or first week's like, first year. And but you're hitting it right on the head.